Hey, so I had to rebuild the sand waterfall tank. The base that it was on was very flimsy in the end and not suitable. So seeing as I had to pack down the whole thing and rebuild it, I thought I'd do a video this time without just photos, just to give you an idea on how I built it and how you get the end result with all the details in it and making it look as natural as possible pretty much. So when I did it originally, you can see this piece of wood in the back. All I've done is glued Anubias to it. Now the glue I've used is a gel, not the normal running glue. The gel's a lot easier to use, and this is it here. Pardon the mangled tube, but that's it. It's about $20 to $25 at your local pet shop, fish store, sorry. And I went through probably a tube and a half gluing all the plants onto everything you're about to see. So you do go through a fair bit of it, but it's gel, it's not runny. So it's super easy to use and position on what you want to use on without it going everywhere and making a mess. In here is a tip, and it's basically like using a pencil. So you hold it like a pencil, put a little tiny bit on whatever you're trying to glue stuff onto. So if it's wood, it's literally just like that. And you dab it, and then put the plant on the spot you put the glue on. You don't put it on the plant, you put it on the surface. That way, if you need to do anything, most of it won't run everywhere. You can just basically reposition the plant and it works out pretty easy. You hold it in place for about 20 to 30 seconds. It will get pretty tacky pretty quickly, which is really good. And then once that's basically mainly stuck in place, from there you just sort of release it and just make sure it doesn't move. You can touch a little bit to see if it's going to fall off or whatever, and if it does fall off, you just let you redo it. It's pretty easy. And use tiny little bits of glue at a time. You really don't need a lot. If you use too much, you end up with like this white patch residue. You can kind of see some there in that little tiny bit in that corner. Sorry, that was the glue being dropped. Just there, that white bit there, that's glue. So that's what you end up with if you use too much. So as you can see, with all that I've done, you can't see any at all because I've used it very sporadically as I've needed it. Not just put it everywhere to try and keep it as natural as possible. There's also some under the moss here as well, holding that onto the log. So with that, when you're working with the moss, again, same principle, you put the glue on the wood first, use aquascaping tweezers to actually put the moss in position, then you lower it onto the glue, and that way it's mainly the moss touching the glue and not your tweezers and not your fingers or anything else. Otherwise it just goes everywhere. So that's pretty much how you glue the plants on there. It's totally safe for water, totally safe for fish, the plants, anything you put in there, it's made for that. Don't go out and get cheap stuff, get the proper stuff. It is so much easier to work with and it does the job really quickly. So when you're gluing a lot, you can get through it pretty quick without making a huge mess. And like I said before, you can hardly see any spots there on that piece of wood at all. And there's quite a bit of glue in that under the plants. You just can't see it because I've done it really neatly. Now, as far as the substrate goes, all I've done is tiered the sand, I guess. So as you can see at the front, it's really low. And I've tried to keep it in the border of the actual tank itself down here, so that when you look from the front up, it gives it a lot more depth, because you're looking from a lower point at the front, and then towards the back, it's going to go upwards as you go further higher and higher towards the back with all the rocks and everything else that's going in there. So excuse my voice, I've been talking all day at work and I'm losing it. So all I've used with the pebbles, it's a 2 to 3 mil mix. I think it's called Gold. You can get it at most pet shops. It's a pretty basic everyday substrate sort of thing. It's not anything fancy. It'll cost you about, I don't know, 25 to 30 bucks per 10 kilos, I think. If you hunt around your local landscaping places, you might be able to go cheaper there. So definitely look around before you go buying. I used a bucket's worth in here. The bucket is a 10 kilo bucket, so I'm going to say it's about 10 kilos. It was a pretty full bucket by the time I topped it up. So yeah, and again, start the front really low and then angle it right up towards the back to get that height towards the back, which gives you the 3D effect when you're looking at it from the front. I'll cover that a bit more later on, but that's kind of the beginnings of how you start, I guess. The other thing is to work out, obviously, your position of your tank. Make sure, all your spacing is right, how it's going to look towards the end. Make sure the front's right. Make sure your base is level. your base must be level. If it's not, when you fill it up and you've got your water line here, it will be unlevel, and that will annoy the hell out of you. And also, if you've got it really unlevel, sorry, just trying to get it to focus, in the back, say if that's down or that side's down and your water is heading towards the back, it's going to warp your tank, and eventually that will cause your seals to play up and you'll get leaks and that sort of thing down the track. So always make sure your base is level before you start. So I'm going to go and fix my voice up a bit, and then I'll come back and do another piece once I put some more stuff in there, and we'll go from there. I just wanted to touch on something quickly as far as the wood goes. I had a couple of questions regarding the wood I was using. This is literally just from a park next door. It's really hardwood. I did boil it a bit on either end of it to try and get it waterlogged and try and get the tannins out of it a bit, but I didn't actually notice any tannins really being released that much. I do have another plant on a piece of wood in a container somewhere that I'm not going to be able to find at the moment, but that piece of wood is actually breaking down really, really quickly and releasing a lot of tannins and a lot of mess. So that one's actually not going to go back in the tank this time, but this piece is going to stay because I like how it comes out the top of it up here, and then I can put vines and things going up here, and then that's how you kind of blend the top of all these plants down into the tank and making it look like one big feature and not just a tank and then plants. It kind of all merges into one when you have it all kind of continuing up the back and then out the top. I'll show you a few more tricks with that later on. Okay, so next step is just adding in the waterfall. So this is an old ornament I've had for about 20 years. I've had it in storage, I've always loved it, and I've always had an issue with the sand. So I did some research and dug a lot and eventually found a little article on them, and someone put in there to test them first in the water. So you basically just put the ornament in a bucket of water or a container, or I had mine in the tank just with water before with nothing else, and you run it and you work out your airflow and then volume of sand that you're using. So the trick is less is more. The less sand you use, the more of an effect you'll get, because you won't have the sand going everywhere. Therefore it actually looks like a waterfall without all the sand around the base ruining the effect and making it look fake. If you use less sand on the actual waterfall itself, it'll literally just flow from the top straight into the catchment at the back and then repeat straight through the top again. If you don't know how these work or are coming across it for the first time, you can buy them online on Amazon. You can buy them pretty much any major seller online these days. Mine was from a local pet shop back in the day. I can't remember what it was called now. It was ancient ago. If you are new to them and don't know how they work, they basically work the same principle as an under gravel filter in the lift tubes. So there's an air pipe here. It goes down the back. There is a connection right down the back there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's down that corner, down there where the red thing is. That connects into the back of it. And then inside the back here is a tube where that air goes in the bottom of it. The air bubble comes up the tube and out the top. In this hidden hole here, there's actually a hole there. I don't know if you can see it there. That is where the air comes out. And then as the air bubble goes up the tube, the front of the base where the sand collection is down there connects into the base of the tube as well. So as the air is lifted up the tube, it pulls the sand up with it with the suction through it. And then at the top here, there's a mesh inside it, like a fine mesh, and the sand gets caught on that. It falls back down the top here, goes down, and the air gets released through here without any sand coming out the top. And it just repeats continuously. Again, with your airflow, the lower the airflow rate is, the less, I guess, disturbance you have above that. If you have things on top of it, or like water moving and that sort of thing, the actual air works in a rhythm as well. So it actually sounds like a heartbeat when it's running. And it's a continuous rhythm. It's very different to a normal air stone running in your tanks and the sound that they make. It's not like that at all. It's very different. And I use a very low flow little air pump that's somewhere I can't find at the moment because everything else is buried. But that is it's a low flow. So it's not going to pump out a heap of air. And that's exactly what you want, because if you have a heap of air going through it, it's going to make the flow rate out the front a lot faster and your sand will go everywhere. Down the bottom, I can't get my hands down there, but where the sand, where you can see the sand down here, as it comes down here, it hits this and you get a little current, like a circular corkscrew happening. And as that happens, sand gets blown out the front here. So that's why you've got to keep your flow down, otherwise the sand just goes everywhere, makes a mess, and it ruins the effect. It looks fake, and you don't have that natural look about it, I guess. So when you come down the front, all I did on the actual ornament itself was, again, glued a heap of wooden plants and rocks onto it. So everything on there you can see is glued on there, it's not just sitting there. I started with, I'll throw up some pictures so you can sort of see how I did it, but this was the first piece, which is just your normal spider wood or whatever it's called. I cut the end off it and attached it about there under this. So it's actually in here where it attaches first. So that was the first piece. And there was a branch in here which came across here. So I put more glue behind that and attached it to the backing here. So between the glue there, the glue under here, all that holds it in place really solid so it doesn't move at all. I mean, I can lift that whole thing up just by holding these, but I won't because they'll probably break off and I don't want that. The smaller details really matter in the end. So that was the first piece. Then I bought more and broke it up. The ornament naturally had some grooves. So there was a groove through here and up here. There was another groove down here. So it goes from there down to here, then across all the way over to here, and then down to here. So as soon as I spotted that, it was the same size as the wood. So I was like, that'd be perfect as root runners pretty much. So if you follow that line, try and get my fingers out of the way so they're not in the way. So the wood there starts all the way up there, goes down here, across here, and then down through there. Now this bit here also tees and then goes down here. And then the piece down the bottom you can see is a separate piece again. However, so the one right down here, that's the separate, complete separate, that's got nothing to do with the others. It was just a random one that I picked up, and then I played around with it a lot until I figured out that if I attach it on the front and put some rocks under it, it's going to look like the entire thing has grown all the way from that top bit there down to here, and then out across the rocks towards the front. And then again, glued it, played around with it until it lined up with the ornament properly and found a flat spot. That's where the glue went. And it's held in place solid as rock now. And again, I can lift the whole thing up by that if I wanted to. So yeah, that's how I did that with the wood. Next step was the rocks. So what you want to do is cover all of your joins with wood. Sorry, every wood join, you cover it with a rock. So that way it blends it all through and you can't see the joins in the wood. So where the join was with the wood there, that attaches to the ornament at the back. And then I chucked some rocks on here to cover all that up so you can't see any of it. This one here was just a ridge, so I filled that with rocks. Eventually moss will grow down here and then across here once I attach it. Again, more rocks there, more rocks here, rocks down the bottom to blend it all through. And then I stuck them all the way, get my hand out of the way. So try and get my finger in here without my knees. Oops, sorry. Then there's a rock there, and then going up, stacking it upwards pretty much. Try and go from above so you can see it, but it's a bit hard to see it without water in there. No, you can't. There you go. So that stacks up from the bottom going upwards pretty much, and all I did was use rocks that follow the ridges in the ornament. So you basically buy a bulk pack of the rocks, put them in a tray, look at them, look at the shapes, look at the patterns, look at the colours. You never ever want to put the same coloured rock next to each other or the same shape. You want to use similar rocks. So for obviously a waterfall effect or a stream effect, you use the nice round river pebbles or river rocks. So pretty much nice and round, all different colours. Yeah, the trick here is not putting the same colour next to each other, always keep them differently, but work around the same shapes. So those ones down there are just little decorative pebbles, but they're still round, and that's why it works. And they're not those, it's not dragonstone like sharp at edges and it's not rigid or anything, it's just nice little round rocks. and again further down there as well. So after that, yeah, it was just going on all the plants pretty much. So I looked at the plants, looked at the way that they were growing on another ornament that I had. I took them all off, looked at the stems and worked out where on the ornament it suited the stem on the plant pretty much. And then that's how I was able to position them so well without seeing any roots or anything, and it just literally looks like they're growing off them. It's just all glued on there. There's no, I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, yeah, it's all glued on there. It's not just, actually I stuffed that one because you can see the roots, but it doesn't look that bad. Anyway, that's that bit. I'm going to go for a bit and add some more rocks, and then I'll come back and then show you the next step. Alright, so next step here, I've basically shoved the root system of a big long piece of pothos I have that grows all above the tank, which I'll show you later on. They're really good for filtering the water and keeping it stable. Pothos love all your nitrates, so they're really good at balancing. Yeah, if you do have it around the house, try and grab some. A lot of people keep it in their gardens, so it's this stuff here I'm talking about, if you haven't had it before. I think it's also called devil's ivy as well, although that might be another plant. However, everyone calls this stuff pothos, or pothos, same thing. It's just a creeper, it's a vine. It makes these little nodes, I guess, and these are attached to everything. If you have it leaning on something, like if that was on that piece of wood, like that, over time it would actually glue itself to it. That's how it creeps along and holds itself in place. So if you notice it's starting to go against, like if you got it inside and it's going against your brickwork or anything else, keep an eye on it. It will glue itself to that and leave a mark on whatever it's touching. You can cut these off right there at the base of them. It won't damage the plant, it won't kill it, but you definitely need to keep an eye on it because that's how it moves. You can see them there everywhere. So that's new growth. That's a new leaf coming through there. This piece would be probably about 3 meters long, and I've just had it curled up everywhere. However, in there is the root system, so I've hidden that at the back for a reason, because I don't want that to be the feature of the tank. I want the waterfall to be the feature. If that was, say, up here, it would ruin the effect of the little tree, and it would ruin the effect of this. So you need to work out what your features are going to be before you actually start, which I did previously and I forgot to mention it. So this is one feature on this side. So basically I've done a design that focuses on height. So it goes from on the front and then goes upwards towards the back and then keeps going upwards. That's why everything in the tank is tall at the back. It's to create height because it's a tall tank. So this is an Aqua One Dynamic 58. There's a 55 version as well. This is the 58. And I've basically gotten rid of the cabinet because it was water damaged, but the tank's fine. I picked up on Marketplace. Always do a tank test as well, a water test, to make sure it's not going to leak before you use secondhand tanks as well. Check all your seals, make sure none are lifting, make sure there's no damage or splitting or bubbling. So go through, literally check all of the edges, all these. This is black silicone in here. So always go through and check them if you buy a tank off Marketplace secondhand. Anyway, so yeah, root system's in there hidden at the back. Now the trick to these plants, the creepers, is to make sure it still gets water flow. So I know air lifts out of the back of this, which pulls water upwards, so it's going to draw water through the back anyway, regardless. So it doesn't actually need a lot flowing through the back, but I know it's going to get some, and that way it keeps the roots get oxygen and they won't starve or rot, pretty much. And the other trick to pothos is if you cut it from your garden and you put it in your tank, you're going to get root rot from the bacteria in your tank. So always put the fresh cutting in a container of water first from your tap, which has chlorine, and the chlorine kills any bacteria and stops the bacteria getting into the fresh cut, which will then cause the root rot. So put it in the jar or container of fresh water for a day or two, change the water, and then again keep it in the jar for a day or two. You don't need it to get new roots, you just need to make sure that that fresh cut seals over and no bacteria gets into it. Then after a few days, you can then put it into your tank and it will then start to grow new roots and that sort of thing. The root system in the tank, you can see there, it's fine white hairs, and the actual roots in the garden are very different to that. So this is basically underwater or submersed roots, whereas above the ground, you basically just get those little nodes I was talking about before, I guess, which are these. And that's about it. You will get some roots coming out from under here as well, but they are different. Anyway, point being, it will start to grow underwater roots. So yeah, I have a piece of this in every one of my tanks. I use it all the time to keep the water balanced, and they work extremely well. Very easy to care for. They like bright indirect light, so no grow lamps directly above them. It will kill them and burn them, and the leaves will just die. But next to a window where there's bright sunlight coming through it, works really well. And this tank sits against a window, so it's the perfect spot for it. So I'll show you later on once it's all set up and you can see the huge vine that's growing up above it, but it's a bit of a mess at the moment. The other thing I did was add the two main rocks. So that one's back in where it was before, and I've just wedged it right up against the ornament and tried to follow the curve of the roots. It's a bit, the wood, sorry, down the bottom. It's a bit hard to get it perfect, but once you have the big one in place, you can then add little ones around it, which then blends it through better. Now on the side where this brown one is, I know I said not to use different rocks, but sometimes contrasting rocks actually have a really good effect as well once everything's set up. So I had a piece of wood there before, and that was the wood I mentioned before that's decomposing really badly and releasing a lot of stuff into the water. I don't want organic waste going into the water at this stage. Everything's very delicate, so it's not going back in there. So instead I'll use the rock there to the left, and then so that one there, and then in the back, sorry my phone keeps focusing on my hand, in the back corner down here I'm going to put some stems, as in plants, and they will grow up from that gap. Okay, I'm going to give up now. It'll grow up from that corner upwards, and then with the height of the stems coming up the back, they'll come up behind that rock going upwards, and that way you'll see the rock and then the green plants, and they'll go higher up to Anubias and then the wood. So again, it's creating that tall lift effect, so it takes the eye upwards. That's what you want to do. The other trick to using the rocks, so the reason I put that one there is on the inside join down here, there's a big dent on the inside, and it matches this corner of the ornament perfectly. So this here is wedged into that, and that holds that perfectly in place. That way there's no movement or anything when I'm putting more things in there. So you might need to work with different rocks, see what works. I had a different rock in there before, and I looked at it and it just did not look right at all. But down the track I can see this working because it's going to have the plants behind it, and the contrast between the brown rock and the green plants behind it are going to have a really nice effect. So I'm going to keep going and I'll be back soon. Alrighty, here we are again. So as you can see, I've added in a lot more rocks. I was trying to reference the previous videos and pick some things I had of the other first version, I guess you can call it, and there's no way I was going to be able to recreate that unless I was spending hours and hours and hours putting exactly each rock in exactly the same place that it was. So I thought, why not revamp it? So we're going to call this one version 2. So as you can see, there's many different rocks in there, and that's the trick to getting the natural effect. So like I said before, never put the same colors next to each other or the same shape. Try use different textures and really pay attention to the rock shape and pattern as well. Down here you can see the big speckled one, which is New Zealand lava rock, and there's a tiny one over here. That's the contrasting piece. So you never have those next to each other, have them away from each other. Opposites work best in these sort of designs because it's a very small space. When you have a much bigger tank, you can then put them together and then put plants all through them to separate them out, and that breaks it up. Whereas in this type of thing, you do need to pretty much put them on the opposite side to make it look very random. The overall random effect is what you're trying to achieve the most. So you don't want the same thing of anything next to each other, apart from probably plants, I guess, because they can grow next to each other in the nature. So what I've done is focused on the height again. So as I come, sorry, I almost fell over a rock. As I come down here, you can see the height difference here. So it starts really shallow in the front, and then it tears upwards towards the actual waterfall itself. That way, when you're standing back from the tank, it draws your eye up from the bottom to the top, and it also makes it look a lot taller than what it actually is. So this one I've focused on doing more rocks. It gives it more of a stream effect, whereas the other one was a bit more, I guess, random plants and rocks. But I wanted more of a cascading sort of effect, and you can kind of see the height happening here. It will look better when the tank's full, you'll be able to see it properly, but it's a bit hard to show until there's water in here. But it does start very, very shallow with the gravel. That's probably just covering the glass, and then even up under that actual waterfall itself, it's about probably 3 inches taller, including the gravel on the sides, and that way there's enough depth at the back for stem plants to develop really good root systems. There is a crypt there. It's going to have a root tab put under it to give it a boost, and that way that will make that really pop out and contrast against the rocks in the background. I did use a red rock there, you can see. That's purely for contrast as well. I know I said to keep them all the same, but like I said, sometimes contrasting works. Reason being, there's a gap behind it. You can see it in there where that dot is at the moment, and there's going to be green stems in there which will then contrast against the red, so or the brown, whatever you want to call it, browny red. So that browny red there will have a green stem behind it. What else have I done? It's mainly just focusing on the height. As far as substrate goes, I didn't use aquasoil either. I actually hate it. It keeps causing a lot of imbalances in my tanks. I know you put it down the bottom and I know you seal it. I do have a tank set up like that. It's a Guami tank, and the plants absolutely go mental in there, and it looks great. But in this sort of setup, I'm moving things around a lot, and I don't want to disturb the capping layer. And if I do, I know I'm going to have an algae bloom. So even with the plants in here, I don't want to risk it. I'm just pointing out, again, trying to get the height reference in here, so you can see the shorter ones at the front, and then it does go back up towards the top. One thing I'll also point out, you can see that rock right there in the middle with the browny blue texture. That's a feature rock, so I purposely put that there so it draws your eye there. So when you look at it from the front, you can see the speckled one on the right hand side first, then as you get closer, your eye goes towards the middle. It's a really random pattern, and that's what's pulling your eye towards that. And then also on the left hand side, that brown rock does the same effect as well. So with the plants, they're pretty easy to do. You want to keep it as random as possible again. As you start to put more rocks in, you'll start to get spaces and gaps, and that's where I purposely put them to make it look like they're growing out of little crevices and that sort of thing, which is exactly this one up here. So I'll put that in a gap. That one there is in a gap. That one there is in a gap with rocks around it, and the crypt is in a gap as well. So that's all been done on purpose. And it adds to the natural effect of it, so it looks like it's all blended through and not just randomly put there sort of thing. I am going to add more moss down the track, but right now my focus is on getting the basics done, getting the tank filled up, just so the plants don't dry out. Also, I forgot to mention before, with your plants while you're working, you need to keep them moist. They will dry out, and then that does affect, obviously, their quality. They take longer to bounce back. So if you get yourself a spray bottle, just mist them every, 10 minutes or so, just to keep the moisture on the leaves. You can see they're wet. And that's all you really need. Otherwise they will dry out, especially if you're an AC like I am. Anyway, back soon with more. 1 hour later, and you can see there's a lot more detail now. So I finished off doing all the plan out. I've added more smaller rocks, placed them better, blended them better, alternated them better. So yeah, anyway, everything just blends better now. So I'm at the stage now where pretty much 99% of the substrate is in now and the hardscape's done. All the plants are back in, all the rocks are back in. I've actually used up every single rock that I pulled out before. including adding in 2 new ones, which is that brownie red one on the left hand side. So if I can get this to zoom properly without blurring, I decided to go with some grass behind the rock, and as you can see, the contrast between that brown and the green is working great already. So that's what I was trying to achieve. So that's what you got to try and keep in mind when you're working with these things, is all the different contrasting effects really bring out the natural look in things. So the browns of the wood versus the green of the plants, that bluey whatever color of the ornament versus all the greens, the brown from the wood. So everything's contrasting, and that's what makes all the colors pop at once, rather than just having the same color next to each other. So again, here you can really see the height taking effect now, especially if I try and do a different angle without falling over something behind me, which is a pile of rocks. So that's probably the best it's going to get before my fingers get in the way, but it really does lift up at the back. And then once this is full of water, it will give it even more of a dramatic effect. So if you're not sure on your plants, the plants attached to the ornaments and the wood and everything else, the green stuff basically here is Anubias. So there's all different versions of it. This is the normal version. I don't have the smaller nano type, but it'll stay small enough in this tank. I don't think it's going to go that crazy. The moss used here is Christmas moss. There's a very, very similar type called peacock moss. Peacock moss is more feathery. Christmas moss grows more compact and in a more defined shape, if that makes sense. You can do comparisons if you Google it, and you can put them side by side on your screen and see the differences. But this will grow into a huge bunch and start to hang down and look really nice. There's also the filter outlet above it. I have this on low, I don't run this on high, and the water trickling down is just enough that's going to put sort of a movement to the moss, which will bring it to life really well sitting up in that corner. It will fill up that corner, it grows quite high. I've got a huge bunch of it somewhere else in another tank, and it's massive. So other plants are, we mentioned the crypt down there in the middle. It's got sandal over at the moment because I just dumped a heap in there to try and make it look more natural. The grass, I can't remember the name of it, but it's a very common one. It sends out runners, it will actually carpet all over those rocks and look really natural. It will look great once it gets going. Forgot my hand was there blocking the light. The plant there on the rock, that's Java fern. And you can glue it onto wood, you can glue it onto rocks. It grows on a rhizome. Trick is to keep it out of the gravel. So that little black dot there next to it on the rock is its roots. You don't want those under the gravel or they'll rot. So always keep them on a rock or on wood that's above the gravel. Don't bury the roots. And again, all I did was just glue those on using the same glue I showed you before. I am going to glue another piece onto that rock right there. I've misplaced the glue from before when I was showing you, so I don't know where it is, but once I find it, I will then glue it on there when I do another water change. In the back, I've got a couple of stems in here. So the one sitting flat right there, that's wisteria. And the stem's actually in that back corner down there. So that will fill up that entire space eventually. It grows pretty big and it looks really nice how it branches out. I've done the same over on this side, over there. On the right hand side, you can see it's sort of laying there on the rock at the moment. That will then fill up that space there. In the back, I've got Camboma, whatever you pronounce it as. It's that fluffy plant, same as pretty much Limnophilia. Very similar plant. That will fill up that whole back corner and then start to branch out on the sides as well. Anyway, I'm at the stage now I need to set up the filter, get that all prepped and ready to go. And then once I've done that, I'll then add in some water, fill it up, and as I bring it up more, then I'll put the rest of the stuff on top of the ornament you can see there and sort of blend that through as well. There's more rocks going on that, plus another piece of wood with some more Java fern on it. Back soon. I've just gotten the filter up and going for the night just to get some flow happening. It's a bit of a bombshell at the moment, so it's super cloudy, everything's stirred up, not balanced. I've added in some water conditioner, I've added in some AccuClear, beneficial bacteria, and some plant fertilizer. So it's going to be like this for a couple of days until it all clears up. You can see here, this is the height I was talking about earlier, and it's really showing up a lot more now when there's water in the tank. I actually redid this since the last video as well. In the middle, wasn't happy before. I like the new tiered effect. Waterfall's offline at the moment. I haven't really done much else apart from get the filter working and finish off the rocks, so I'll spend another hour changing things around. It's now 2:30 AM and I've been going at this for 6 hours, so it's bedtime for me. And I'll do another video once it clears up, and I'll get the waterfall going, put the rest of the plants in, finish off the top, and then I'll do a proper video once it all clears up and looks really nice. So still a bit to do, but the main part's done. I'm definitely calling this number 2 because it's definitely not like the first design I did. My phone's not really picking up the height either, but when you look at it in person, especially from a distance, you can really see it. It looks really, really good. So, see what happens in a couple of days. And here we are the day after. Are you ready? I'm so pleased with how this turned out. Look at that. So good, right? This will clear up even more. Still a little bit cloudy, things yet to balance in, so it will take a bit of time. Usually takes 24 to 48 hours for it to clear up properly. I need to clear out the filter already because it's full of muck, and that will clear up even more as well. That tube's not going to be there, that's what runs the sand filter, and it's at the back usually. I purposely put it there so it doesn't fill up with water. I also wanted to point out one thing as well. Once you fill up your tanks, always recheck your balance, make sure they're level. So, across the front, across the back, up and down each side, and also your diagonals as well. Make sure everything's balanced. If it's not, you will get movement and your tank will warp, and then your seals are affected. Purposely put this here because this is the actual problem I had with the previous stand, which I didn't realize, and it's a my problem. So usually when I use these self-leveling legs, which you can pick up from your local hardware store, I use a normal one, which is what this is. I didn't use the heavy duty ones. So what happened was these have a rubber foot, and the rubber is actually quite soft. I don't know if I'm able to push it with my finger, but yeah, I can actually. That's how soft it is. So if you get some weight on that, like a lot of weight, it's going to compress it. And if you've got unlevel floors like I do, and the floor's not level, you'll end up with, say this is the higher side, and where my thumb is the lower side. This side gets compressed, the other side stays fine, but then the tank will then become unlevel. And it's exactly what happens. So it wasn't the actual base it was on, even though the base is probably too small and not suitable. It was actually these that were starting to warp. So instead of them being flat, they were actually starting to tilt, and that was causing the legs that they're attached to warp as well. So yeah, always use your heavy duty ones, especially if you've got a lot of weight on them. Even if they're overrated, still use them compared to the normal ones. These are just cheap normal ones. I shouldn't have used them. This is another lesson learned in the life of fish keeping. So I'm going to wait a couple of days now for this to clear up even more. Might do some more plants yet. I'll get the sand waterfall running and put the rest of the plants back in on the top. And yeah, go from there and then see how it looks. Quick video, forgot to mention this is the product I use to do the clearing up. All at your local pet shops, local fish stores, everywhere carries it. API is an awesome brand. You only need a couple of drops of this. I don't know if this is going to pick up the dosing rate here, but you really only need the smallest amount. Don't overdose. You'll end up with this like coating on absolutely everything in your tank, and then it takes a while for it to basically be stirred up and then captured by your filter, which is the whole point of how it works. It's basically a binding agent. So the liquid goes into your water, it makes all the smaller particles and everything bind together and form a bigger I don't know, particle, I guess, and then that's what your filter captures. And that's how you end up with the crystal clear water when you use this stuff. It's really, really good and it works really well. It's definitely worth its money. I did put some beneficial bacteria in there. I use this one. There's many, many different types on the market. They're pretty much all the same thing. It just speeds up the cycling of the tank. You don't have to use it, but this is almost empty and I want to get rid of the bottle, so I did use it. Yeah, it's good because it speeds up the cycle. You don't need to wait as long to get some fish in there. So anyway, bye for now. Here we are with the waterfall running again. So like I said at the start of the video, use minimal amount of sand, otherwise it goes everywhere. If you look at the base down here, trying it to focus a bit more, you can see there's no sand overflow, and that's because it's going all the way down to the base and that's it, and going straight back up again. I've also tilted the whole thing back slightly, so the actual sand runs down the back of it and not towards the front. So yeah, minimal sand, and watch your airflow. If it's too much, it'll go too quick and it'll go everywhere. If it goes too slow, you won't get enough lift. So you got to get the airflow right from your pump, and then also the right amount of sand, and then it will flow really nicely like this is. So I'm also going to update this a bit more. I've been looking at it trying to work out why it just doesn't look as natural as the previous one I did. And it wasn't until I went and visited someone yesterday, showed them the video, and the first thing they actually commented was, it's very bright. I have lowered the light a little bit, which is giving it a bit more intensity. But when I looked at it more, there's a lot of white rocks. I didn't realize that until I actually started to study them. I've also used a different blend of gravel on the top as well, with some blue through it to blend in with the blue rocks and blue pebbles and that sort of thing. So my folks are very into exploring and caravanning and camping and that sort of thing, so they were lovely enough to bring me back a bucket of rocks from one of the creeks. It's not a protected area, so they're fine. However, the rocks are very different to these. Still the same round rocks, however, I've got a bucket of them here, and you can see it's completely different, and they look a lot more natural with the browns instead of all the white. So be keen as well when you're doing rocks, wet them. When you actually wet the rock, they go darker, and you can see a lot more of the patterns in them, how they're going to look in the tank as well. I don't have a flash on at the moment, so it's not really picking up the patterns in these, but there are some really, really intense red ones, really, really intense brown ones, and when they're wet you can see their basically true colour, how they're going to look once they're in the tank compared to when they're dry. And yeah, they're very, very different, so you need to wet them before you put them in to see how they're going to look. You can see the contrast straight away, how different it is compared to in there. I mean, obviously the others will be a lot brighter once they're under the light, but this has a lot of white through the blend that I've purchased, whereas these are straight from the creek, so can't get any more natural than that. Anyway, I'm going to add those in, and then I'll do another video once I've done that, and we'll see how it looks. Just another quick vid. I've pulled out all the white rocks and a few of the other ones. Just going to redo that centerpiece again. Still got that running just so I can keep an eye on, I guess, the whole effect and how it's going to look as I'm going. I've got the other rocks ready to go, and I just want to give you a tip. So when you're sorting them out, grab yourself a tray like this. It's really, really easy to contain everything. I think this was from Kmart from memory in Australia. Most department stores have craft tables and, craft trays. So this has a raised ridge as well, so it holds in spillages with water and that sort of thing. Speaking of, as I mentioned before, grab yourself a spray bottle, wet your rocks. You can see the colour change as I spray them. This is what I was talking about before. And you can get an accurate idea on how they're actually going to look in your tank. So before, I thought, certain rocks were certain colours, and they're not. They change completely. And you can see it happening here in the video. So that's all you need. Now you've got an accurate idea on how it's actually going to look in the tank. So there's a lot more brown in this compared to before what I had with all the actual white colour. And this will look a lot more natural once it goes in. So yeah, you can see the complete difference here compared to when they're dry. And that's what I mentioned before, make sure you spray them before you put them in when you're doing the skate. That way you know how it's going to look accurately. Anyway, I'm going to finish this up and then we'll see how it looks afterwards. And here we are, 2 hours later, and stunning. Now I have the very natural creek look that I was trying to attain and go for earlier. Everything blends through with the different coloured rocks. Just gotta wait for the plants to take off now and then see what happens from here. That grass will eventually cover everything down here. It sends out runners and just covers everything and starts to carpet. It looks really good when it gets going. Now to wait for everything else to take off, including those stems. They'll fill up that whole corner there. And then I'll do another video once it clears up in a few days. For now, look at that. We are on day 3 post last video, and as you can see, it has cleared up a lot. So very, very happy with this. All the plants are realigned, and they're up towards the light. They're not bent over like they were before. The wisteria's already taken off, which is great. That one's taken off, which is great. That one's taken off, which is great. So yeah, overall it's doing really well after just 3 days. It's very vibrant green, there's no die-off. Even the crypt is fine, there's no melt there, so very happy with that one. And I think this one's even taken off even more, which I'm very happy with. It grows very slowly and it's already puffed out a fair bit, so it's heading towards the light as well. So not much more to do on it now. I'll let it clear up a little bit more, wait a few more days, then do another video. It looks cloudy up here because the light is penetrating through that microparticles. Up here it's closest to the light, whereas down the bottom it's not. That's why you can notice it more up towards the top. But this will clear up even more yet. So just gotta wait for the bacteria in the tank to develop a little bit more. And then once that happens, and there's a lot more happening in the tank as far as the microorganisms go, with its own little ecosystem, it will clear up a lot more again. So it's now Thursday. I'll do another one on probably Sunday, and that'll be the final one. Might add a couple more plants, but apart from that, we're very happy with this. There is a plant on the right hand side here. It's just down further at the back. It doesn't get much light tucked away in there, so it will take a little bit longer to get up. But eventually that whole back right hand side will be just as filled in as the left hand side is now. And obviously even more once it gets going. I forgot to point out the other day, in this little tree there's flame moss in here. Tiny little bit of it, so I'm just waiting for that to start get going, and then that will grow vertically just like the branches are, so it'll look awesome once that gets going. Anyway, that's enough for now. I will do another video down the track in a few days, and then hopefully that'll be the last one. I'll edit it up and you'll be able to watch the whole process from start to finish. So thanks for sticking around and watching, and I'll see you soon. Here we are, Sunday morning, unexpected turn. So the actual waterfall stopped. Obviously there was a blockage, I had to pull it out. So this is currently over the sink, obviously. I had a lot of questions asking how these things work. For those who don't know, I did put a video up and then put a comment on there mentioning how they do, but I'll just go over it again just really quickly. It's the same way the underground filters work with lift tubes. So that's an air line there going in from the left hand side, connects into this green tube going up all the way up the back. So I've actually ripped the cover off this and damaged the base, but you can't see it from the front, so I don't care. The bottom of that green pipe is at the back of the front collection chamber, which I'll show you in a moment on a different video. So the sand gets picked up from the bottom of that green piece. The airlift sits just above it, and as the air as the air bubbles go up the tube, it creates suction. So that pulls water in from the front through the collection chamber and then up the back, and then the actual combination of air and water lifts the sand all the way up the tube vertically. and then it goes into a mechanism up the top here which separates the air from the water, and then as well, it's in this part here which I'm not pulling out, you can see it's been covered up, but as the air travels through it comes out this hole here, and that's the mesh I was talking about. So I'll just go over it again quickly in case I went too fast for some people. So starts down here at the base, bottom of the green tube, gets lifted up through this combination of water, air, movement plus sand, all the way to the top here, goes over here, goes here, air comes out there, sand goes down the front. So we're going over the top now. Got to try and avoid all the bits and pieces I've added onto this. We're currently upside down, so welcome to being over the top. And that's the collection chamber there. And if I go down even further, which it's probably not going to let me because of the blur, but there is a hole at the back there where that white stuff is. The white stuff's actually blue tack plugging a hole that's been there for many years, but you can't see it because of the sand normally. So anyway, looks a bit messy at the moment because there's no sand there at all. I've taken it all out. So that covers how they work. And that's why you've got to get your air lift, or air pump, I should say, the right size to create the amount of lift. Otherwise, if it's too much, those bubbles go up that tube way too fast and blows the sand out the top. So the exit hole that's in the top here on the waterfall, which is there. If you have too much sand, it will then go everywhere. It'll actually spray it out and create a complete mess all over the front of here, and then whatever you got in front of it. So nice and slow. I don't know what my pump is, I can't tell you, sorry, so you just have to do some testing like I did with different small pumps to see what works in a container before you put it into a tank. So I'm going to spend my Sunday putting this back in, getting it working again, reblending it to the surroundings, and then once I've done that, I will put a snail treatment through the tank because I've just pulled 2 snails out of that, and that's what was blocking it. 2 little bladder snails. So I'm going to be really careful transferring plants and everything, just because they obviously contain snail eggs, and that's how you transfer from pet shops and that sort of thing, or other people you buy them off, into your tanks, because snails actually lay eggs on the back of the leaves. So any of these, it doesn't matter what plant it is, but on the back is where they'll lay their eggs, and they look like clear little gel lumps pretty much, and that's how you know it's an egg. Snail eggs especially. So anyway, I've got a lot of work to do now getting this back up and working and putting it together, so I will do that, and then I'll do the treatment. It takes about 2 or 3 days to clear up. You use a product called Planaria, I think it is. No, sorry, that's something else in the tank. I'll find the product anyway, I'll put it in the next video, and then that way you can use it for your snails so that they don't clog up the tank. Obviously you can't keep the mystery snails, apple snails, that sort of thing when you're doing the treatment, and the treatment does last in the water for quite some time, so no snails at all. Doesn't affect fish, doesn't affect plants, it's all natural, but it does hang around the tank, so yeah, no snails once you start this journey pretty much. Alrighty, that's enough for now. Yeah, I'll do another video and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, so I've just put this back in the tank to test it to make sure it is actually going to work, because I ripped off that back panel and I wasn't sure if it was going to affect any seals or anything, so always test everything before you actually go scaping it again, because you don't want to have to redo it for the 4th time like me. Ignore my comment before about the planaria. It's actually a worm, not a treatment. I've not had anywhere near enough coffee today yet. So this is the actual product down here I want to show you in case you do need it. So it's all natural. It works for both snails and planaria, which is a worm. You can see it on the front cover there. That's what a worm looks like. But you can also use it for the snails as well. It's completely natural. It creates like a smoky haze through the tank for a couple of days. It will cover the plants, but it doesn't affect the plants. Just try and gently brush it off the leaves so it doesn't affect the photosynthesis rate on the plants. But yeah, like I said, no snails, so no apple snails, no mystery snails, no any form of snail, and it will last in the tank for a while, so make sure you check the directions and find out what that period is. I can't remember, but that bottle lasts quite some time. So you can do many tanks with that. You only need a couple of pumps. It's a concentrate. So anyway, it is working. I'm going to take it out again just to check the back to make sure there's not any sand leaking. And if it's not, then I'll put it back in, re-escape the tank. And well, there's not much to do, it's just covering up those edges really and blending it all through, which is what I did previously. So I'll do that again for the 4th time and then go from there. Here we are, 4th time lucky. All finished for now. Escape's done, waterfall's running, all the plants are back in. It's going to take a bit for those stems to realign, but they will towards the light and they'll look good again. It's all blended through nicely. This time only took me about 2 hours because I've already done it. So 2 hours to pull it out, fix it, put it back in, escape, get it going. Yeah, so practice makes perfect, as they say. One thing I will say, put a towel around your tank when you're working on it, that way it doesn't drip all over everything below it. And then also get yourself one of these. As in my previous video, so a drip tray, that way it protects anything underneath it when you're working. They're like $4 from your department store. If you're in Australia, it was at Kmart. Very handy to have. So it's gone cloudy again. I'll put AccuClear in there, hence the cloud. So it'll take 2 days to clear up, and then I'm still deciding if I do the snail treatment or not. I may do it, I may not. I'll see how many appear in the tank and go from there. I've already pulled out quite a few, so just depends on how many eggs are in there and how many have just survived the pull down I just did then. So I'll give it some time and see what happens. Here we are again. Welcome back. Last video was halfway through May. We are now at the start of August. And yes, there has been some development with a lot of growth, as you can see. I'm trying to hold this as steady as possible. And that way you can get a good look at everything that's in the tank. So the waterfall has been running really good. Haven't really made many adjustments since the last time. I've had to do pretty much a whole bottle of snail kill to try and get rid of all the snails. And I finally got there. I had some fish in the other weekend, they're doing pretty well. So I'm hoping it stays on track. The water is actually crystal clear. My lens is picking up light from my tanks to the side of this one, which is making it look a bit cloudy, but it is actually crystal clear, it's beautiful. So here we are with the final result after all that work. Patience definitely pays off with this one. As I said at the start, do yourself up a design, work out what your feature points are, how your layout's going to be, and then keep in mind plants do grow. So where spaces look empty before, they definitely look full now. The crypts are taken off, the Java ferns doubled in size, hay grass is starting to spread and send out runners, and everything is doing really well. The only fertilizer I'm putting in here is some Seachem Flourish, and I also dose it with Excel as well, sporadically. I don't do CO2 or anything, I don't do anything else special. Top it up with water, I don't even do water changes. I feed very sporadically. The plants do all the processing for me. As I said in the previous video, there is a massive pothos vine growing out the back of this as well, which you can't see the roots off, it's behind the waterfall. But I did say earlier, I would do a shot of, I guess, the top, and you'll see just how much that vine is growing everywhere. So all that vine there, and that side, is all one vine that I've completely disrupted around each other, and they all feed back into here. And the root system is tucked in behind that waterfall. There's a gap there to allow sufficient water flow, so they keep receiving oxygen, and that stops root rot, like I said. So with all those plants processing all the waste, I really don't need to focus on water changes at this stage, and I've only got very low stock fish that don't generate a lot of waste, so the plants do most of the work for me. It's amazing how much of a, I guess, low maintenance taints can be when you have the right balance in there. So yes, this will be the last video. Finally finished. It was a lot of work. I had to take this waterfall out I think another 3 times to do different things with while I was dealing with snail blockages constantly, but they're now completely eradicated and I'm very happy with that. I ended up using a different treatment. I don't have the bottle with me, but it was basically a copper sulfate, I think it's called, and yeah, it did the job. I'm just going to make sure I get no eggs in here now. So that's it for now. Any questions, put them in the comments and I'll reply as I can. I'd love to subscribe, try to grow my channel a bit more. So leave some love there if possible, please. This was a lot of work in the making, but it was definitely worth it in the end, as you can see. So adios for now, and thanks for watching and sticking with the video. It was a lot of work, but we finally got there. And as I said, any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll try and get to them as quickly as I can. Until next time.